Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Flooper Up Talks show, where we're going to be having many episodes and many different series in regards to vast variety of topics. Mainly, we're here focused on IT, and our very first guest. This is a very special session. We have Mr. Albert Whale, which I like to call him as a brother of mine. He's a best-selling author. His main expertise is in cybersecurity. He's written Hacked One, Hacked Two, and I think you had another third one coming up, or
There are other cybersecurity books.
yes,
I also did two additional books in personal development, which enabled me to create the first two books, quite frankly.
beautiful. He's not just an author as well, but he's an author maker, which I was very humbled, and it was an honor to partake in one of the personal development books that he put out there. Brother Albert, if you can give us a little brief history about how did cybersecurity start with you, like when you were younger? What gave you the motivation or interest to really go into this field?
That's a really great question. And all I can say to you is when I was working with independent telephone companies and I was building out the first internet connection in Western Pennsylvania using Linux, and everybody around me was naysayers saying I could never do it unless I used Microsoft products and they were too expensive. And I said, oh, okay, watch me. So I built out connections for phone companies to become an ISP, an internet service provider, so that they could provide the service to their clients. And then this big event happened. You've probably become aware of it. It was called 9/11.
Yes.
Now, before 9/11 happened, I was observing that we had evolved from computers that were connected to this ARPA-DARPA net environment, which became the internet without firewalls because everybody liked, and trusted each other, to an environment that had become increasingly hostile because attackers had gotten engaged with it and firewalls were necessary on every piece of equipment that went to the connections that I had enjoyed free reign with without needing a firewall. And then, like, the floor bottomed out and firewalls were mandated. And then 9/11 happened.
Well, thank you
And
for
I
it's been this heavy stuff on how things just shift all of a sudden.
all of a sudden, and I had a knock on the door from the FBI saying, you're building the internet. We need your assistance in identifying the people on the September 17th watch list. We had actually had a knock on the door, we set up a meeting, and then the watch list was presented. When I got it, it was September 17th. It was 36 pages in a 9-point font for an Excel spreadsheet, which was double sided.
Wow.
From there, I went from investigating people to supporting the FBI InfraGard in Pittsburgh. I'm actually one of the co founders there. We taught security to the national critical infrastructure to help protect our economy and the world against people that want to take our resources from us,
I
the
believe
attackers.
I believe now it's even more necessary than ever.
Unfortunately, yes. And, the problem is people are trusting firewalls and virus scanners to alert them to the problems, which they cannot see. So they're using tools that are myopic in focus and don't report activities because the bad guys have access to the same tools and they know how to circumvent them.
Let's say over the past 10 years. Now I know September 11th was almost 24 and a half
24
years
years
ago.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But how did the landscape of cybersecurity evolve over the past 10 years up to today, where we are now?
great question. In the past 10 years, we've evolved from saying that everybody needs to have smaller networks fragmentation so that you can compartmentalize different departments in a business, and they were immune from pings from other sources because the ping wouldn't go through unless they knew exactly where to ping. And that micro segmentation grew into more network security as well as putting an eye on vulnerabilities that were in software. The big difference is this software was running on systems globally, as well as new projects that were going out. For the most part, these tools that were being provided by vendors were not tested by people wearing the white hats. And by the time the attackers had done enough damage to these applications that warranted announcement to everybody using the products, it was too late.
They
Think
already,
about,
it's like a
yeah,
Trojan horse walking in on you.
exactly. Think about SolarWinds. SolarWinds was an open source product. You know what open source is, right?
Accessed by everyone.
It is. I call it free software.
Free
A
software.
lot of people want free software because why pay for something when you can get it for free? That was my philosophy when I built out the ISPs for phone companies so that they could have their clients get access to the internet. I used free software. Today, I don't trust free software as far as I can dig into the code. And let me know if you want me to go down that rabbit hole or if we're going to go somewhere else.
Let's narrow it a little bit. And
Sure.
in terms of cybersecurity, what are the biggest cybersecurity threats today that are people facing in their individual or business lives?
The biggest threat is the inside threat, the threat that is already inside their environment that they cannot see. Let's face it, our supply chain is tainted. What do I mean by that? Where's technology built today? Before the Trump administration came in and said, I want to move manufacturing back into the United States, which I support wholeheartedly. Where's everything built?
Southeast Asia, mainly.
That's a good question. I usually round this up with it's a red country. It starts with the letter C. It ends with the letter A. And it's not Canada, Cuba, Colombia, or Croatia.
I
You
think
can
you're
say the
narrowing
word.
it down.
You can say the word now.
It's China.
There you go. Now, I have nothing against the Chinese people, okay? But the Chinese Communist Party has different intentions. Their intention is to get people addicted to cheap technology. And they do that by sponsoring manufacturers to reduce the price of manufacturing to keep that as a drug for the world to purchase from them. If you got nickel candy and it costs you 3 cents, you're going to go back to that store to get that nickel candy for 3 cents, right?
The power of
Because it's
production. Yeah.
cheaper. Maybe other people are selling nickel candy for a nickel, but you're not looking at it. That's why these tariffs are essential because the Chinese Communist Party has embedded people into the manufacturing process to put back doors into all the products. You probably never heard that.
No.
But like you said, Southeast Asia, we put a Samsung TV in our house. The day I connected it, I noticed that it had a crypto coin miner on it.
Wow.
I didn't authorize that to be put in my TV. I don't want to support the attackers and give them free money, which is what a crypto coin miner is going to do. It's going to give them the next coin in the sequence. But if you're doing that globally with all the TVs that Samsung makes, wow.
And We live in an age today where artificial intelligence is pretty being used heavily, especially in a fast business paced moving cities. But how do you see AI impacting cybersecurity, both as a threat and as a defense? Because it's a tool, it's a very powerful tool, and you could use it for multiple purposes. But just speaking about the threats and as a defense, how could it impact cybersecurity?
Yeah, so AI is one of those tools that I list in the Pandora's box. The box has been opened already. And we've unleashed a tool that will eventually take us out of the picture. It will replace humans. And I say that because the attackers are using this tool to find new ways to exploit companies, not only through cybersecurity, but also in manipulating marketing strategy, investigating who's who inside the organization, so that they can make a bigger splash at getting inside the environment and taking the resources that they would like to have. And I say that wholeheartedly because when AI is used as a weapon, it's very hard to stop this without tools that actually can see the activities going on inside the network. And most of today's tools only look at, did I find malware on that machine over there or up there? Or maybe this one over here. And if they don't see the file, which gets deleted as soon as the machine is infected, let's be honest here. Virus scanners are ineffective against zero-day threats and AI. How can this be used in a defensive posture? Being able to determine through your landscape or a global network what attacks are taking place allows us to better secure the activities that are going on inside. That is, if we can analyze everything that's going on inside networks, we can block the bad actors and only have business needs or personal use through the internet. Now, can we do that with today's tools? No, but I have a strategy.
What would that strategy be, if I may ask?
Oh, I'm so happy you asked. Yeah, Brother Ahmed, I've come up with a tool that actually monitors activities inside the network real time to see what is going in and out of the environment, allowing business need to proceed without any interference, and anything going to malicious networks gets blocked. Or if it does certain things that trigger a block, we take care of it as it's done. Not looking at log files that seemingly are unable to analyze and digest because not all of the markers in the log have been configured in the SIEM. So it takes anywhere from 8 to 18 months or more to configure your SIEM to find the events which were previously unknowns. And by that time, they're already long term inside your environment. They've probably taken all the goods that they wanted, but you're unaware. And
It's just
you're
such,
ineffective at blocking them.
wow.
I don't like these guys running around inside my network. That's why when the Samsung TV said crypto coin miner, my It's Safe appliance, you need It's Safe inside your network, brother.
Probably if there is something that is tweaking my system here. I had your screen frozen for a minute. We're glad to have you back. Brother Albert, like personally, what made you
Right.
pursue this career in cybersecurity?
That's another great question. As I was sitting on my couch having morning coffee the day of September 11th, and I saw the first plane crash, I was devastated. I'm a veteran. I was the father of 6 children. And I said, nobody's better aligned to protect this country and understand the attacks going on than I am. And at that time, working on the internet, I had access to the world from my desktop. A lot of people didn't know how to utilize that. And this was pre Facebook, pre Google, pre just about everything except email. Email was like the first activity that came out. And then AIM Instant Messenger. Do you remember Netscape?
Yeah, an escape navigator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those were the beginning of
Yeah. And I
the
was
days.
chatting to people that were in DC, a block from the Pentagon. Nobody knew what was going on. But I knew I had to stand up and be counted.
And was that like a major cybersecurity challenge that you were facing at that time? Like you had, was it like a challenge for you to put your efforts and skills into it?
It was a complete unknown.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity wasn't there yet. The global adoption of the internet wasn't there yet. So, was it a challenge? Yeah, defining something that doesn't currently exist is always something new, but I was into it. And I helped support it with the FBI InfraGard and organizing that and running it in the past as one of the co founders and presidents of the organization. But after a while, I found out that volunteerism doesn't put food on the table. So I started working, teaching others about security and helping them with their efforts, which was a lot more fruitful.
Now, coming to where where you decided to teach regarding cybersecurity, what
Sure.
advice would you give to someone looking to start a career in cybersecurity? We have many schools out there today teaching it. Of course, you're one of the top leading experts on this topic. So, what advice would you have for someone who would love to enter into this field?
So it's a wide open field. We're missing about 5 million people that are experienced in cybersecurity right now. And the field is so broad. Can you see my arm stretched out? Probably not. Because there's so many activities that you can do in cybersecurity, you pretty much get to pick and choose what you want to work on. Some people specialize in software. Some people specialize in networking. The one thing that I recommend to people that are getting involved in cyber is to start learning Linux. If they don't know what Linux is, download a copy of it on your computer and play with it. And then if you want to become a pen tester, penetration tester is the full term, or learn how the attackers exploit things, you want to get involved with Kali Linux, Kali. That's also free. And it'll give you access to free tools. And there are training videos. You could go through Udemy or any of those other schooling practices. Most of them are free. The best education comes from the work that you do for yourself. Using somebody else's ideas in a classroom environment gives you some kind of baseline or understanding, but doesn't give you that personal experience of cracking the code. Benjamin Franklin put it pretty well. He said, tell me something and I'll forget. Explain it to me, I'll be able to understand. Engage me in it and I'll comprehend it and be able to use it to my benefit. So when I was teaching, and I taught the Air Force what software security was, I had that in the back of my mind all the time. Usually on the first day when I'm teaching how to exploit software, everybody's really excited about doing online banking in their pajamas at home while they're sipping on their coffee until later in the day. And then I show them how an attacker takes money out of their bank account and sticks it in their own without them being logged in.
Okay. And what would be the most common ways that hackers can gain access to systems today, like with today's tools?
Today's tools are mostly initiated with an email or attacking a website and placing malware on the website itself so that they can exploit hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people at one fell swoop.
Wow.
If you own a computer system that has been sending me spam, by the way, including universities, hospitals, and other businesses, which happens every day, by the way, you're sending out email to people that are unsuspecting and don't know how to determine whether it's a phishing email or a spam email or legitimate. So they change something on the website so that as soon as you click on that link, that website connects to you and it's able to exploit the vulnerabilities in your browser, your computer, and the person sitting behind the keyboard.
Wow. And is it related to something like cookies when it asks you to accept the cookies? Could that be a risk factor?
Cookies are definitely a risk factor. And if you examine the cookies on your machine, some of them don't appear to expire ever, or
Wow.
maybe in 99 years. So the usefulness of cookies not only allows you to get back into where you were on Facebook or Amazon or Google or whatever you were using on the internet, those cookies get you back to what you were doing, but they also tell attackers, where is it you go? Because when you go to their website, they can grab all your cookies. Now they know your browser history.
So invasion of privacy, so to speak.
You call it invasion of privacy. I call it a recipe for attack. Unless you clear out your cookies on a periodic basis, even every 30 days is better than never. Yes, you might have to log into a few websites. So be prepared for that. But if you're at home, you can put your passwords in a book that nobody's going to get to see if you're working from home. They don't get access to your office, and the attacker can't look at you in your office writing the password down. So it's pretty secure. Now,
So,
in a normal business setting, don't do that because the business has their own methodology for helping you secure your passwords. So this only works at home.
okay. And what would be the top three security practices that every business should implement immediately?
So the first thing that they should do is they need a risk assessment. This will have an experienced professional come in, take a look at their network, their policies, procedures, their disaster recovery plan, or the lack thereof, and come out with a report that says, here's your problem so far. And yeah, you might not see the attacker within, but when we scan with our security appliance, we'll show them the connections to foreign countries that they never authorized, including the big C. I don't mean cancer, I do mean China.
Wow. Wow. All right. And in regards to individuals, how can they better protect themselves from phishing and social engineering attacks?
Phishing and social engineering. This is one of those nuances that even the email scanning tools that are out there, there's quite a few, they don't always get it right. But what you can do is look at the from header and see if you recognize the name. Is it somebody you've talked to before? Even if it is, it's potentially not ruled out as spam or phishing yet. Did the domain correlate with the person's name in the from list? If it's from howareyou.edu, it's probably not legitimate. Okay. And that's probably the easiest way to throw that out. Now, if it's somebody trying to impersonate your bank or Amazon or Netflix or Prime or something of somebody else's value, there's going to be a link somewhere in the text. Don't click it, just highlight it and see what link it provides. At the bottom of most email readers, it'll come out with, where does this link go? And if it's for an Amazon email and it doesn't go to Amazon, chances are good this is not going to be a good day for you to click that button.
I remember back in the day, I used to get a lot of emails stating that they're from Apple. But when I checked the domain, it usually had one misspelling within the domain itself. So I knew that they're trying to scam me or
Look-alike,
try. Yeah,
look-alike domains, right?
absolutely. And it's what's scary is that they have my username. Now,
Yes.
it boggles my mind on how on earth they managed to find my Apple ID and send me an email accordingly. So, anyways, but I'm glad
It
that I
doesn't boggle
actually,
my mind, but
in terms of raising awareness, what role does cybersecurity awareness training play in preventing attacks? Now, especially let's say for companies.
so cybersecurity awareness training is the first level of defense for the organization. Mariner, get out of there. Sorry. I have a 70-pound puppy. She's a giant schnauzer, and she's decided to come into my office to snoop around. Haven't you, girl? Anyway, we were back to the question again.
What role does cybersecurity awareness training play
Yes.
in preventing attacks?
It enables people to understand that security starts with you. Person looking at me right now, it always starts with you because you're the one that's going to click the link. You're the one that's going to make a misconfiguration. And I don't care if it's just the admin at the front door, the accounting professional, the firewall security professional. Everybody makes mistakes. And they all need to know that they're the first line of defense. The tools that are in place aren't always going to protect you. So you have to be awake and aware of the potential exploits that are going on in the environment.
Definitely can be useful. Everybody will be having a second guess once they've raised their awareness around it. In terms of today's digitization of almost everything, specifically when it comes to relation to money, how do you see blockchain technology influencing cybersecurity?
I think that blockchain can deliver some benefit as far as non repudiation. But the problem is when attackers are using their AI and quantum based systems, they might be able to engage the blockchain distribution network and take over the environment directly. And that only happens in environments where something bad went on in the configuration for the security. But the potential exists to be able to use this tool to verify that the software or the file or the data hasn't been modified. The problem I have with this is you don't protect data with technology. A lot of people think encryption is going to protect their data.
But it's not.
It cannot. Using classical computers, yeah, you can get encryption that will take 10,000 years to break. But if they have access to quantum computers and they have your encrypted data, guaranteed in less than a day, probably less than 8 hours, they will break that 10,000 year encryption to gain access to the data. The encryption only delays and defers access to the information until it cannot be useful anymore. If you're doing online stock trades, and you don't want anybody to see what's going on, those trades probably by the end of the day are meaningless because you're not going to get that price or that value at the same time anymore.
There's quite an interesting thing you mentioned in regards. I mean, we used to have supercomputers, but now we've moved into quantum computing.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the role of cybersecurity in the rise of quantum computing? Because this is the era where almost all the tech giants are moving forward with.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not advanced enough in cybersecurity to be protected from the quantum computing environment. I believe that cybersecurity can be an effective tool at minimizing exploits and attacks as long as it's employed with a way that's going to benefit and protect the organization. And you can't do that by using reactionary tools like looking at log file events, which is basically saying this event happened. And those are all events that you didn't want to have happened, but yet they've already been done.
They've already happened.
You can't block that because it's already happened. You can't change the past. So you might as well work on the present. And that's what better cybersecurity tools like our It Safe security appliance can do to protect an organization. We'll look at connections that you want to have and don't want to have
Brother
and lock
Albert,
down the environment.
you have your It's Safe cybersecurity product. Can you give us you could share your screen if you wish, but can you just give us a slight demonstration or an overview of your system and how it works?
Sure, I wasn't prepared for this, but if you give me a second, I might be able to get it running.
Because I think what you have is a very important tool that basically people can have access to in the near future if they wish, or there are many companies out there that may be vulnerable to cybersecurity threats, which you can help them prevent.
Correct. I was trying to look at only Denmark. Like, I didn't invite Denmark into my system, did you?
Absolutely not.
So this is the dashboard for our security appliance. And these top four panels are pretty effective at telling you what's going on in the environment. For instance, these alert signatures, we can see that there's 1.2 million possible exploits with semantic cab parsing, malicious outcast of out of bound reads. There's DNS queries to .cc. What is a .cc domain? Do you use that?
No.
Some people would think it's credit card. It could be. Nobody in this office is using the .cc domain. This is internal attacks going on in this environment that aren't able to be determined because nobody's driving those applications. Here's one to IP info. What's my IP address and where am I in the world? That's never said by an authorized user. That's usually used by an attacker who doesn't know where they are and what systems have been lucky enough to gain the malware that they're distributing in the environment. There's much, much more that can go on in this discussion here, but I'll keep it brief for us in this conversation. If I look at the categories, that 1.2 million connections is a Trojan.
Wow.
that you'd never see. Look, our networks are so fast anymore that activities that we don't ask for are virtually invisible, and they don't affect the downloading of our videos, our Facebook experience, or anything else that we're trying to promote on social media. There's miscellaneous attacks, attempted privilege gain, trying to define what is the external IP address. And why would they do that? Because if they know what the external IP address is, they might be able to exploit the connection that's outside, go through the firewall, and get into the environment once again. But these applications are already inside. And what they're doing is probing the environment for one thing. These HTTP methods are what your browser, your web browser, uses to talk to a web server to find information. Get means give me what you got. Post means I've modified a field and I want to submit it, like, for instance, a deposit in your bank account. You're going to update information and press send. That's a post connection. The dot head is tell me what this device can do on its web server. That's not normally done by somebody that's using the environment. It's usually done by somebody that's testing. And connect. The connection's automatic unless you're trying to hack into it. These next sequence of methods that are here in an encoded fashion are all meant to be used and understood by the web server and either exploit configuration that was on it or have it reboot or turn itself off, which is the denial of service attack. Lots of activities here. And here we also take a look at what activities going on during the day. There are some periods of downtime, but they're not significant. They're not like a full 8 hours or anything like that we're seeing on these charts. Most of what I'm seeing right now are Windows updates and Microsoft connections, and that's only because the top 10 host names, these were sent out the most. So it's invisible, like we're being masked about where are they going in the world until we look at the connections and the countries that they're requesting access to. This right here is our keyword map for the countries that are talking to this environment. This is a local dentist office, and they have clients from, let's say, up to an hour away from their office. There's certainly not people coming in from Turkey, Russia, Hong Kong, China, Peru, South Africa, Thailand, Mexico, Malaysia, if you get my point.
Quite
These are
interesting.
all connections that are being exploited by the software that was downloaded by connecting to websites. And they're all trying to recover with proxies going to different countries to get new updates to the malware that's on that computer. But if you block the activities, they have no connection. And that's what we do, not
And
just by countries, but by other activities that we see in the environment.
now, so you have a product that is both a software and a hardware, or is it just a software alone?
Right now, it's sitting on hardware.
Okay.
We're raising money from investors to take it to the next level, which will probably enable us to go to a cloud-based version, only because we don't have access to where the cloud is to put a piece of hardware, but we can put what we're using into a cloud container and run that as we would our security appliance. So right now we're protecting on-prem, and anything that goes from on-prem to in the cloud can run through us, as well as the Wi-Fi connections to personal devices. We can filter those and determine whether or not they've been breached as well.
And just for companies, if they have, in terms of what is the installation time and to have it up and running?
Depends on inventory and stock, but normally we
Okay.
start off with a risk consultation unless they're ready to
Okay.
go. But that risk consultation, whatever's spent there, will be deferred and let me say not deferred, but will be used in conjunction with the installation of the tool itself.
Alrighty.
The
Uh,
actual installation doesn't take long. It's configuration and learning what the business deems appropriate use for their environment because every business is different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, in terms of regulations, what impact do regulations like GDPR and CCPA have on global cybersecurity practices?
Well, I think it's a great start at getting organizations to understand that the rules are not just local, but that if you're going to involve people from Europe into your environment in the US, then wherever you process their data, it needs to stay there. So if you have an access point in Europe, the data must stay in Europe and not leave. This is what got Facebook in a lot of hot water for GDPR because they moved their main data center from California to Ireland. And then the EU gave them GDPR fines of several $100 million.
Wow.
Now, that's devastating for a business that you and I recognize, other than Facebook. But to them, it was like a rounding error in accounting.
And just for the major public, how do we balance security and privacy in a world where data collection is increasing? There is always, you find these terms and conditions as soon as you download an app, and some of them
How
they
many have you
say
read?
that people don't usually read it. If the app is quite interesting, they just accept and continue. But some of them do sell your data, let's say, to third parties.
They all do. Some time ago, there was an app called Face App. And the app would take a picture of your face and then age you 20, 30 years. What are you going to look like in 30 years? And that was all the tool did. And I was called by a local news center and asked to comment about it. So I read the EULA. EULA stands for End User License Agreement. If you're going to use this software, you have to say, yes, I agree. Did you read it? Because for the Face app, it clearly points out that the application is hosted in Russia, Mother Russia.
Wow.
And when you give them access to the information that you put into the app, you hold them harmless and they can never be sued for what is going on with your data.
So giving up your rights on the spot.
Everybody gives up their rights in order to use the tool. And that's become commonplace, and people are starting to accept it as the norm. Well, that's not normal in my book.
It's more like social conditioning.
It's very much so social conditioning. Here, let's put this really interesting app here. We'll show it to you. Look at how neat it is. We're going to TikTok it all over the place and put it on Instagram, and we're going to reel it through Facebook, and everybody's going to want it. Now we know who they are and what they look like and their contact information and everything else that we can get out of them. Wow. What a target rich environment. That's the way I look at it.
Absolutely. Brother Albert, if you could make one change in the cybersecurity industry, what would it be?
That's a question I hadn't pondered because it's not going to be one change that's going to actually do push the needle. I think the one change would be to help organizations improve their testing so that instead of identifying risks on devices every 3 years, they did it every year. But even that is not sufficient for zero-day exploits. So I would utilize my security product that looks at activities going on today and blocks bad threats now rather than later. That's the one that I would implement because people are counting the number of vulnerabilities in their software, in their servers, what didn't get patched last Tuesday, or what got patched last Tuesday and introduced new errors, but they can't block the attacks that are happening at machine speed. That's where we excel.
And just our final question, and you've given us great examples today. You've given us great insight. How do you see the future of cybersecurity over the next 5 to 10 years? What is your predictions based on whatever's happening at this time in 2025?
Well, I see a lot of activity going on for mandates for organizations that are doing contracts with the federal government. And they're calling it a CMMC mandate. So if you have a contract or you're a subcontractor to a government contract or resource, you have provided the necessary controls to meet. I see that as being the gold standard for government systems, and that compliance for government governance, GRC, is just a starting point for business because every business is so different. Some are local businesses, some are global businesses,
Global businesses,
some are
yes.
multi corporational businesses. And even with those businesses, they have different standards about how security should be implemented, which doesn't necessarily protect them. I think that they need to have a more concerted effort to reducing the number of vulnerabilities or at least reducing the response time to attacks. Right now, it's 8 to 18 months before you notice that you've already been breached. With ItSafe, we can tell within 10 minutes. And then
Amazing.
everything after that is blocked. And
Uh,
it's only 10 minutes because that's the time to ingest data. We're actually seeing it live, but putting it into the system, the live events definitely get blocked, but viewing 10-minute intervals on the dashboard, most people aren't going to view more than 10 minutes at a time. Like the screen I'm showing you, hold on, I'll pull it up one more time. Share. Our dashboard has the ability to show you different points of time. This is showing the last 7 days. And then refresh is every 10 minutes or some interval that's smaller than that. But if you're looking at 7 days at a time, then it's going to be pretty mute what 10 minutes does. And this is today, the effects of what's going on today, that the footprint has decreased. The number of events have decreased. We're still talking to Microsoft a lot, but here's one, a Microsoft Connect test. Microsoft doesn't need to know if you have a connection, but there is a tool that's called a Microsoft Connect test. Guess
nice.
what they're testing?
I never knew such a thing existed.
And we still have access going to multinational corporate countries, Germany, India, Japan, Hong Kong, South Africa. I can tell you certainly that there's nobody from these countries visiting this office. Like I said, they're a specialty dental care facility. They're about 10 minutes from my house. And they accept clients. You could travel for 4 hours, they don't care. But they're not coming in from overseas to get their new crowns or implants put in. They'd go local. So you can't really see the attacker inside your network. if you're not aligned to find them. Most
You
places aren't looking for them.
you definitely have a preventive measure with your product that you've just shared with us here today. Brother Alba, I want to thank you so much for being our guest on our show. And just wanted to ask, what methods would be for someone that's trying to reach out to you? Like, what would be the best way?
Oh, sure. They can find me on LinkedIn or they can send me an email. You can email Flooper, Fluper, at albertwhale.com.
Okay.
And that way I'll know you saw the video that Brother Ahmed recorded for our interview.
Well, that would be a great way for the audience to stay in touch. I think it's
Pleasure.
frozen again. Okay, there you're back.
Yeah, it did freeze. We'll have to do an edit or so.
That's
Yes,
all
we're
right.
back. So Flooper, Fluper, at albertwhale.com. That's my name. And that way I'll know that you saw the video that Brother Ahmed recorded on our interview. So I know you want more information.
It's a great way to keep track of the audience, whoever's watching this video right now. And
Absolutely.
Brother Albert, it's been such a pleasure to have you with us on this show. And if is there any final takeaways that you would like to give a tip to our audience before we end our show?
Yes. Cybersecurity is a choice. It's not a light switch. I would welcome the opportunity to flip a switch and make everybody secure. I can't do that. So the next best thing was to build a product that would help organizations become more secure, quicker. Blocking the attackers, that's what we do.
Thank you so much. You're such an expert on this topic. But thank you, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed our show for today. And we'll see you again on our next episode. Take care. Thank you, Brother
Thank you,
Albert.
Brother Amin.
Bye bye.